Breaking right now, the British royal family mired in one of its biggest crises in history.
Breaking news has arrived from the heart of the British royal family, a revelation that has shocked insiders and the public alike. Princess Anne, widely regarded as the monarchy's backbone, has reportedly taken the unprecedented step of preventing Queen Camilla from participating in Prince William's coronation planning. Sources inside the palace describe the decision as deliberate, precise, and quietly enforced, leaving palace aides scrambling to adapt to a rapidly shifting hierarchy. This move has ignited speculation across media channels, with royal commentators struggling to interpret the implications of what some are already calling the most significant internal crisis in decades. Before we move on, click like, share this video, and subscribe for daily royal updates. For years, Camilla has carefully cultivated her public image, transforming herself from a figure once surrounded by controversy into the queen consort. Her influence within ceremonial and symbolic areas of the monarchy has grown steadily, attracting both admiration and quiet concern from senior royals. In contrast, Princess Anne has long maintained a position of strict discipline, adherence to protocol, and measured involvement in family matters. She is known for her ability to observe, calculate, and act in ways that preserve the long-term stability of the institution rather than seek immediate personal advantage. The tension between these two women, while previously understated, appears to have reached a tipping point. Reports suggest that Camilla's exclusion from coronation planning was not a result of oversight or miscommunication. For weeks, key meetings, confidential briefings, and strategic discussions regarding the future coronation were circulated among senior royals, advisors, and palace aides, but Camilla's name appeared on none of the materials. It was only through a chance observation, a missed memo, that the queen consort discovered she had been systematically sidelined. Those close to her describe a reaction of profound shock, followed by private frustration and disbelief. She had assumed her growing ceremonial role and public visibility had solidified her influence. Instead, she found herself abruptly outside the circle of decision-making for one of the most important events in the monarchy. The move to exclude Camilla has been executed with remarkable subtlety. Palace aides describe a process that was methodical and exact, with agendas modified, meeting invitations adjusted, and communications carefully rerouted. At no point was there a public confrontation or an announcement. The absence was the statement. In a palace where every gesture carries meaning, the message could not have been clearer. Camilla's role in shaping the future coronation was no longer welcome. This quiet but firm action reflects a strategic alliance between Princess Anne and Prince William. Sources suggest William himself initiated the decision after private discussions in which he expressed concern about Camilla's expanding influence in areas that would define his reign as king. Anne, understanding both the stakes and the method of enforcement, acted swiftly to ensure the decision was implemented seamlessly. The implications of this move extend beyond the walls of Clarence House. In a monarchy built on centuries of tradition, authority is often as much about perception as it is about formal hierarchy. By sidelining the queen consort, Anne and William have not only altered the internal balance of power, but have also created a ripple effect that will influence public perception, media coverage, and the broader royal family dynamics. Insiders describe a climate of quiet urgency, where aides work tirelessly to maintain appearances, carefully managing leaks, press inquiries, and public messaging. The official statement, when released, is expected to be deliberately vague, focusing on ongoing cooperation among senior royals while omitting any direct reference to Camilla's absence. For Camilla, the experience represents a deeply personal and political challenge. Her influence, painstakingly built over years of public and private effort, has been challenged in a way that underscores the limitations of her power within the institution. Those close to her note a sense of betrayal, not just by Princess Anne, but by the broader structure of the monarchy she once believed had fully embraced her. At the same time, the public and media are beginning to perceive a shift in royal dynamics. Speculation about internal divides, loyalty, and the future authority of Prince William dominates headlines, while Camilla's role appears to be quietly diminishing in significance. As the story develops, the broader narrative takes shape. A family at the intersection of tradition, duty, and modern scrutiny, where personal relationships and institutional imperatives collide. Princess Anne's decisive action has set the stage for a realignment of power within the royal household. Prince William's ascendancy is reinforced, Camilla's influence is curtailed, and Catherine, Princess of Wales, is quietly positioned as the stabilizing figure in the upcoming coronation planning. The stakes are high, the tension palpable, and the monarchy's carefully cultivated image of unity is under unprecedented strain. This unfolding saga is not just about ceremonial planning. It is a test of authority, loyalty, and the preservation of centuries-old tradition. Each move behind palace walls carries weight far beyond the immediate moment, shaping public perception and the very future of the monarchy itself. In this silent battle, the lines have been drawn, the players positioned, and the outcome, though unseen, promises to define royal dynamics for years to come. The palace, steeped in history, now faces a quiet storm, where subtle decisions ripple outward to influence the course of one of the world's most famous institutions. Behind the polished exterior of royal protocol lies a network of subtle maneuvering, quiet calculations, and unspoken authority. Princess Anne, long regarded as the monarchy's most disciplined and duty-bound figure, has never acted impulsively. Her decision to block Queen Camilla from Prince William's coronation planning was not born from personal animosity, but from a meticulous assessment of institutional stability, lineage responsibility, and the careful orchestration of succession. Insiders describe her reasoning as precise, unemotional, and unwavering, a reflection of a lifetime spent balancing loyalty to family with loyalty to the crown itself. Anne's concern was not limited to Camilla's personal ambitions or public profile. It was structural. Over the years, Camilla had gradually expanded her role in ceremonial and symbolic spaces, often overlapping areas historically reserved for the heir. To Anne, this expansion represented a potential erosion of the monarchy's internal order, a blurring of the line between influence earned through years of service and influence accrued through association. Sources say Anne frequently observed Camilla's interactions at state events and private gatherings, noting a pattern of subtle assertion that, while tactful, could be interpreted as overreach. The principle guiding Anne's thinking was clear. Roles within the royal family are not simply about visibility or popularity. They are about responsibility, accountability, and the careful preservation of legacy. Within the private corridors of Clarence House and Buckingham Palace, tensions had quietly escalated over the preceding months. Conversations between Anne and William, conducted away from public scrutiny, centered on how to protect the integrity of his future reign. William, aware of the pressures that would accompany his eventual accession, expressed concern that any perceived compromise or encroachment could undermine his authority. Anne, ever the strategic observer, recognized the opportunity and the obligation to act decisively. She knew that delaying or addressing the matter indirectly would risk creating ambiguity, eroding clarity, and allowing divisions to fester. According to palace aides, Anne began by assessing the networks of influence within the family and the broader court. She mapped loyalties, anticipated responses, and identified potential allies and obstacles. Every possible outcome was weighed: the public fallout, the private tensions, and the long-term implications for the monarchy's cohesion. Her approach, while discreet, was methodical. She issued instructions in writing where necessary, refined communications to avoid ambiguity, and coordinated with William's closest advisors to ensure a seamless implementation of her decision. The aim was precision, a move that would protect the heir, maintain internal discipline, and avoid unnecessary scandal. Insiders reveal that Anne's private counsel to William emphasized restraint, foresight, and clarity of purpose. She framed the matter not as a personal confrontation, but as a matter of institutional survival. She urged him to define boundaries, maintain authority, and act decisively, even if it meant creating temporary discomfort or discontent within the family. Her guidance was rooted in a pragmatic understanding of power. In a monarchy, perception is nearly as consequential as action, and clarity of hierarchy is essential to prevent internal erosion. By supporting William's assertion of authority, Anne was simultaneously reinforcing the monarchy's internal framework, and signaling to all members of the royal household that roles, influence, and responsibilities had limits. What makes Anne's approach particularly remarkable is its subtlety. Unlike public confrontations or dramatic declarations, she operated behind a veil of procedural efficiency. Invitations were reissued, agendas adjusted, and information flow controlled, all without formal announcements or external attention. The Queen Consort's absence from planning sessions was not a public spectacle, but a deliberate, controlled recalibration of influence. It is a move consistent with Anne's history, visible only in its effects, significant in consequence, and impossible to reverse without acknowledgement of authority. Sources describe Anne's demeanor throughout this period as composed, focused, and unwavering. She did not seek recognition, nor did she signal triumph. Her satisfaction lay in the seamless execution of a carefully considered strategy. The tension within the family, however, was unavoidable. Charles, caught between loyalty to his wife and recognition of institutional necessity, reportedly struggled privately with Anne's intervention. While he respected Anne's reasoning, the personal dimension, Camilla's feelings, his role as husband, and his desire for public harmony, created a delicate balance. The king's advisors later noted that Charles's silence during key moments reflected a broader acknowledgement of the limits of his influence. Anne's authority, in this instance, had subtly eclipsed even that of the reigning monarch. Through her strategic intervention, Anne also reinforced a broader narrative within the monarchy, that duty supersedes sentiment, tradition demands vigilance, and the future of the crown requires both clarity and decisiveness. Her decision sent a signal not only to Camilla, but to all members of the royal household. Boundaries would be enforced, influence must be earned, and the heir's role would remain unchallenged. By acting before tensions could escalate publicly, Anne preserved the possibility of order, ensuring that William's ascendancy would proceed according to a carefully controlled plan, rather than the whims of perception or personality. At the same time, Anne's calculation was not devoid of risk. Any perception of internal conflict had the potential to destabilize public confidence, a reality that weighed heavily on her mind. Every move was measured to minimize exposure while maximizing the intended effect. The Queen Consort's eventual realization of her exclusion, though dramatic and emotional, was part of Anne's broader strategy. A quiet, surgical enforcement of authority that underscored the enduring principles of hierarchy, duty, and institutional stability. In essence, Anne's actions reflected a rare combination of foresight, discipline, and strategic clarity. She acted not as a rival or adversary, but as the guardian of continuity, the silent architect of order, and the quiet enforcer of boundaries. By ensuring William's authority remained unchallenged in matters central to his future reign, Anne reinforced the monarchy's internal coherence and subtly reshaped the trajectory of influence within one of the world's most scrutinized families. In doing so, she demonstrated the unique power of quiet decisiveness, proving that in royal affairs, the most consequential moves are often those made in silence, far from the eyes of the public. Once the decision had been made, its execution was swift, deliberate, and virtually invisible to the public eye. Princess Anne coordinated with William's closest aides to implement a systematic exclusion of Queen Camilla from all coronation planning activities. Meeting invitations were silently rescinded, agendas rewritten, and correspondence rerouted to ensure that her presence was neither required nor anticipated. No memo bore blame, no official statement indicated controversy, yet every adjustment carried an unmistakable message. Camilla's influence in the process was over. Observers would later note the surgical precision of the maneuver, likening it to a chess move executed by a master player who foresaw every potential counter. Camilla, accustomed to the subtle diplomacy of royal life, first noticed the omission indirectly. A brief glance at a staff calendar revealed the absence of her name from a key planning session. Initially, she assumed a clerical error, a temporary oversight easily corrected. But as days passed and repeated inquiries went unanswered, the truth became impossible to ignore. She had been deliberately excluded. The emotional impact was immediate. Palace insiders report that Camilla felt a surge of disbelief, quickly followed by anger and wounded pride. To the queen consort, who had worked for years to solidify her public image and quietly build influence within the palace, the exclusion was both personal and strategic. It was a removal from the inner circle, an erasure from decision-making that would shape the monarchy's future. The private reaction was intense. Camilla's staff scrambled to assess the scope of the exclusion, attempting to identify whether it was temporary, procedural, or indicative of a broader strategy. They discovered with growing alarm that every relevant memo, briefing, and agenda now bypassed her entirely. Sources suggest her inner circle debated options for response: confront Charles, appeal to William, leak selectively to the press, or maintain discreet patience. Each option carried its risks, from personal humiliation to public perception of a fractured monarchy. Meanwhile, Camilla herself reportedly vacillated between disbelief and outrage, determined to assert her relevance while privately recognizing the institutional weight working against her. The emotional rupture quickly translated into the first ripples of media scrutiny. Although the palace had maintained silence, journalists and royal commentators began noticing patterns. Camilla's absence from publicized planning meetings, lack of official acknowledgement, and sudden decrease in ceremonial involvement. Speculation grew, fueled by carefully sourced leaks from unnamed insiders, creating a narrative of tension and division. Headlines suggested internal discord, casting a shadow over the otherwise meticulously managed coronation preparations. While no explicit confirmation of the exclusion existed, the signs were too prominent to ignore. The media's magnifying lens had focused on a gap that the palace had intended to remain invisible. Internally, the atmosphere was tense and guarded. Advisors across Clarence House and Buckingham Palace emphasized absolute discretion. Communications were scrutinized, staff instructed to avoid references to Camilla in any coronation context, and contingency plans for potential public scrutiny were drafted. The silent management of the crisis became a priority. Royal aides later remarked that this was not a temporary measure or an oversight. It was a calculated, long-term strategy designed to maintain stability and protect William's authority while minimizing the risk of overt scandal. Camilla's personal reaction continued to simmer in private. Sources describe a mixture of disbelief, strategic recalibration, and a determination to reassert herself subtly through appearances and public initiatives. She reportedly intensified her ceremonial engagements, focusing on visible, high-profile events, and sought to remind the public of her role within the monarchy. Yet, despite these efforts, her exclusion from coronation planning was a clear signal. Her input was no longer decisive, her presence no longer central, and her influence in shaping the future reign significantly diminished. The media's first acknowledgement of the tension was cautious, reflecting both uncertainty and intrigue. Reporters noted Camilla's absence from planning meetings and contrasted it with Catherine's visible role alongside William. Royal commentators highlighted the symbolic weight of these appearances, framing the emerging story as a realignment of influence rather than personal conflict. Analysis suggested that the monarchy's internal hierarchy was subtly shifting, emphasizing the heir and his immediate consort while reducing the consort of the reigning king to a secondary role in ceremonial matters. Social media and opinion columns quickly amplified these observations, adding public pressure to an already delicate situation. Despite the growing media attention, the palace maintained disciplined silence. Official communications described coronation planning as progressing smoothly, emphasizing support for the Prince of Wales while deliberately omitting any mention of the Queen Consort. In doing so, the palace allowed the narrative to unfold without acknowledgement, relying on the absence of confirmation to maintain control. The gap between public perception and private reality created a tension that both fascinated and unsettled observers. For the first time in recent memory, the monarchy appeared divided not through overt scandal, but through a careful orchestration of visibility, authority, and omission. The execution of Anne's decision, coupled with William's tacit endorsement, signaled a turning point. The monarchy had quietly, decisively, and irreversibly realigned roles in preparation for the heir's future reign. Camilla's reaction, private fury, strategic maneuvering, and visible determination, contrasted with the calm authority of William and Catherine, who assumed central control of the planning process. The first media ripple hinted at the broader consequences. The public was beginning to see cracks in the seemingly seamless institution, raising questions about loyalty, authority, and the evolving balance of power within the royal family. By the conclusion of this initial fallout, two truths had emerged. Princess Anne's strategic precision had effectively limited Camilla's influence, and the public perception of the monarchy was subtly shifting toward the heir and his immediate family. The palace, though calm on the surface, had entered a delicate phase of internal realignment, with carefully measured actions designed to protect authority while minimizing exposure. For Camilla, the impact was both personal and political. Exclusion, invisibility, and a stark reminder that influence in the monarchy is contingent, conditional, and constantly subject to recalibration. As the quiet exclusion of Queen Camilla became evident behind palace doors, the public, though unaware of all the internal mechanics, began sensing a shift. Observers noted her absence from planning discussions, subtle omissions in official reports, and a sudden decrease in ceremonial visibility. Social media amplified every small cue: a missing photograph, a redirected briefing, a moment where Camilla appeared distant or sidelined. The public's fascination grew, and speculation ignited. Headlines ranged from cautious reporting to sensationalized narratives suggesting a palace schism. Analysts debated the implications. Was this a clash of generations, a strategic power play, or a personal vendetta? Royal commentators highlighted the contrast between Camilla's growing invisibility and Catherine's quietly assertive presence. Catherine, who had steadily assumed an essential role in coronation planning, became the figure symbolizing stability and continuity. Media coverage underscored her calm, deliberate authority, portraying her as the natural partner of the heir apparent. By contrast, Camilla's absence was framed as conspicuous and consequential. Even without official confirmation, the omission itself became a story. The palace's deliberate silence, meant to contain speculation, instead fueled curiosity and debate, creating a subtle but pervasive media storm. Within Clarence House, Camilla faced not only public scrutiny but personal reckoning. Sources suggest she oscillated between disbelief, anger, and strategic consideration. The exclusion felt like both betrayal and erasure. After years of carefully cultivating her image as a respected and integral member of the royal family, she was suddenly marginalized in the very institution she had painstakingly navigated. The emotional weight was compounded by a sense of personal vulnerability. Camilla had believed that her proximity to King Charles ensured influence, but the events surrounding coronation planning demonstrated that even a queen consort's authority could be conditional. Internally, her advisors debated responses. Some urged patience, discretion, and measured appearances, emphasizing the importance of projecting dignity and stability. Others pushed for subtle maneuvers, discreet media placements, carefully timed public engagements, and strategic alliances to reclaim influence without overt confrontation. Yet each action carried risk. Camilla's team recognized that visibility and relevance in the monarchy were fragile commodities. The wrong move could deepen exclusion rather than reverse it. The consensus became that measured restraint, coupled with visible engagement, was the only path forward. Meanwhile, the palace apparatus focused on damage control. Staff at Buckingham Palace and Clarence House were tasked with maintaining a coherent public narrative. Coronation planning was proceeding efficiently, with the Prince of Wales at the helm. Official communications emphasized unity, cooperation, and continuity, deliberately omitting any mention of Camilla. Every statement, every press release was carefully curated to project calm and control. The strategy relied not on confrontation, but on omission. Camilla's absence became a silent confirmation of her diminished role. For royal aides, this was a delicate balance, managing optics while preserving institutional stability. The media frenzy intensified. Royal commentators speculated about internal divisions, contrasting Camilla's marginalization with Catherine's rising influence. Pundits discussed potential implications for public trust, generational shifts, and the monarchy's evolving power structure. Social media campaigns and opinion pieces further amplified the narrative. While some framed the story as a natural succession of authority toward William and his immediate family, others portrayed it as a deliberate sidelining of Camilla, highlighting palace politics and personal tension. The combination of curiosity, speculation, and subtle leaks ensured that the story remained front and center in public discourse. Behind the scenes, Charles faced a deeply personal conflict. King Charles had sought to defend his wife's position while respecting the strategic necessity of supporting his son. His dual loyalty to the institution and to his spouse was tested. Reports suggest he attempted private counsel, urging Anne and William to temper exclusionary measures. Yet the response was firm, coordinated, and uncompromising. Anne reinforced William's authority, emphasizing institutional stability over personal feelings. The message was clear. The future of the monarchy rested on control, visibility, and careful orchestration, not emotional allegiance. Camilla's personal response was a mixture of private resilience and tactical maneuvering. She continued to engage publicly, attending official functions and ceremonial events, but her involvement in strategic planning remained limited. She sought to maintain dignity and relevance while quietly recalibrating her role within the family hierarchy. Privately, she reportedly expressed frustration at the erosion of her influence, acknowledging that her path forward would require patience, tact, and a careful assessment of where her authority could be exercised effectively. The aftermath was a realignment of royal power. Princess Anne's decisive intervention, combined with William's strategic authority, had effectively reshaped the inner circle. Catherine emerged as the stabilizing figure, quietly assuming responsibilities that would define the future reign. Camilla, while still queen consort in title, was temporarily sidelined in matters of ceremonial and strategic importance. Public perception mirrored this shift. Audiences responded favorably to the steady presence of William and Catherine, while Camilla's reduced visibility prompted speculation and debate. Ultimately, the events surrounding coronation planning revealed the delicate, often invisible mechanisms that govern the monarchy. Authority, influence, and relevance are not static. They are negotiated, defended, and recalibrated through careful action and measured restraint. Camilla's exclusion demonstrated that even those closest to the crown must navigate a labyrinth of protocol, loyalty, and perception. Princess Anne's strategic intervention and William's decisive leadership ensured continuity, while also signaling a generational transfer of power and the subtle reshaping of royal influence. In this carefully orchestrated yet quietly contentious episode, the monarchy had endured another test, balancing tradition with modern expectation, familial loyalty with institutional authority, and personal ambition with the demands of public perception. For the first time in recent memory, the public witnessed the subtle fracture lines of royal life, lines that could not be ignored, lines that would shape the future crown. And for Camilla, the lesson was profound. In the monarchy, visibility is power, silence is exclusion, and influence is never guaranteed, no matter the title one bears.